Be here?
Okay.
So I'll start off, we would like to honor the 4 nations on whose traditional land we live and learn. The Sinanics, the Kanaha, the Sequana, and the Silks. We respectfully acknowledge Indigenous people, recognizing that our students come to us with Aboriginal ancestry from a variety of ancient homelands. And there are regrets from Alan and Eleanor, who are unable to make it today, but so we can move to the agenda. And so
we're going to add an addition to the agenda?
yeah, so it should be a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the item on the review of the co-governance memorandum of understanding, which was in the closed meeting, to add that to the open meeting. I guess under others? Is that right?
You can, sure, absolutely. Yep. Or do it under trustee reports too.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's, sure.
Trustee reports.
So we're putting it?
Put it under
Put it
other.
under,
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't have a discussion, so it's a good spot for it.
Okay. So could I have a motion to approve the agenda then with that addition? Leslie, Jeff, all those in favor? Carried. The minutes of our last meeting, March 16th. Get a motion to approve those, please. Jeff, Leslie?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, good. You two are going to be busy.
Discussion?
If you don't move it and second it, then we're not moving on.
Right.
All those in favor? Carried. Delegations, right? So our special report this week, a report from Ariel on Cody Park Elementary School.
First of all, thank you so much for coming to the school. It's really wonderful to be able to show off and to show you what I mean when I say that we're really proud of our school. So thank you for taking the time, most of you, for doing that. I mean, all of you that came. I actually don't need this yet, so.
So we'll look at you, that's okay. Don't worry.
It's okay, I can, yeah,
I'll leave it
all
there.
right. So I first wanted to just start by kind of highlighting a few things. The report is in your package, and I hope it wasn't too wordy. I wanted to present what we're doing in kind of a different format this year, because one of the things that's really happening is a lot of collaboration between teachers teaching similar grades. And that's always happened a little bit, but it's been even more purposeful. Right off at the beginning there, I talked about especially senior intermediate grades and what we've done with the grade 6-7 class. We have, as you can see from the configuration, we've got a really large group of 7s, 29, which is large for us, and then a smaller group of 6s. So if we'd run just a straight 6 and a straight 7 class, we would have had really disproportionately sized classes. So we, at the beginning of the year, split those 2 classes, so we ran 2 grade 6-7 classes. Knowing that students in 6 and 7 are also at sort of individual areas in their development, so knowing that we would need to differentiate within that. And one of the areas that's always really tricky to reach enough breadth of starting places for students is in math. And so right from the beginning of the year, the 2 6-7 teachers plus the learning resource teacher plus the Alice McGrath, who's our resource teacher, we got together and talked about how could we build in place a flexible, especially math learning environment, and then that led to other things. So they were collaborating for the math time, and that's kind of led to some collaboration in other areas as well. So at the beginning of each unit, they do a math kind of diagnostic assessment, and you've got kids that are really strong, say in geometry, but need some help, some practice with their math facts. So when they come to the geometry unit, they're in a group that doesn't frustrate them for being too easy. They've got enough challenge there, and then when they come to learning their math facts, they've got the teachers have the time to back up and go, okay, all of us, we just need to really practice our math facts and do that in a whole bunch of different ways. So it's been really a fun way to collaborate, but a really effective way to reach students where they are. So I wanted to highlight that.
Good. Do you want to pass me that? Are you going to walk us through that? So if you are, I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Because we're electronic. Pass me back over that, and I'll just pop it up as you kind of
I
walk.
can pull it up on here.
Oh, well, No, that's fine, that's the way you can flip your, you can concentrate on the
And I'm
pages.
actually looking at it, yeah,
Sure.
okay.
You got it. Keep going.
And I didn't try and say, you know, from the beginning of the year, this is all that's going on. I really kind of just thought about what was happening in our building at the time I was writing it. So I'm on page 4, and this was from earlier in the year, but both those 6, 7 classes, and Jeff, you came for that, right? And Bill as well, you came to the student vote. It was quite a big focus right along with the election and federally, so I wanted to highlight that. That's pretty exciting. Another thing in 6, 7 that they've been working on is through Parks Canada, and I was with Alice. Weber, yeah, Alice Weber started this project before she went on her mat leave, but it was looking at a local endangered species, whitebark pine, and again, getting the kids out into the woods and that real hands-on learning, and then it also spreads across seasons, so they got to see meet the whitebark pine early in the fall, and then through the winter, they've been raising these little seedlings and trying to keep them from getting eaten by some weird grasshopper, which has taken root in them. So that's kind of what's happening in 6, 7. I did include the FSA results in there. This was an awkward year for FSAs. We had, there was, in the news, there was lots of discussion leading up to the benefits, pros and cons, and we were a little bit down for the number of students that were writing this year, so we only had 18 students write for grade 7 FSAs, so and some families elected not to have their students write, their children write. Page 6, yeah, I just sort of made a list. One of the things I didn't show you when we were out, but there's a video which I think you'll see on April 27th, where there was Tammy Tom in the 6, 7 had set up a crime scene, and students used their skills, which are required in the curriculum, learning about chemistry and observational skills, to kind of deduce what had happened in this crime scene. So they built it, started with a science kind of approach, but it's gone into their language arts and also their written and oral language components of language arts. Mask making, those were up in the board office. You may have seen them. They're Day of the Dead masks and kind of thing. List of things. One of the other things I wanted to highlight with our oldest students is I just really feel that when you've got a healthy school environment, the easiest way to test whether what you're doing is working is to see how your grade 7s especially treat people when you're not looking. And you have groups of kids that are challenging for different reasons, and you're going to have things that happen sometimes, but overall, how do the little kids think of the big kids, and how do the adults in the school think of the big kids in the school? And I think that's how we know lots of what we're doing is working, is we've got these respectful older kids that aren't just dying to get out of here, they're actually willing to contribute to this. And I loved, so the MDI, I just pulled some of the MDI data too, I love their graphics, but this was my favorite answer to the question. I plan to graduate from high school. 100% of them, yes, of course I'm going to graduate from high school. And when I grow up, I have goals. Yeah, of course I have goals. Important things to do in the future, 65%. We'll get them all there, but anyway, kind of a nice graphic I thought. In our middle intermediate grades, so it's that time when they're really forming their identity, and they start to see themselves as learners and what works well for them and not so much. And one of the things Sue Leach does so well in her classroom is really get them thinking about themselves as learners. Like, what do I do well? What do I need support with? What helps me learn better? And so one of the things we know is really key as students are developing their identities is learning in a trusting environment. And so that's why we've had this big focus throughout the year and throughout the years on connection. There's some responses to the MDI, so academic self-confidence or self-concept. I am certain I can learn the skills taught in the school year. So 86% absolutely, yeah, I'm certain. And then some who know that they need help with some of their learning, but hopefully they know that they can get that help. Adults at school, there's an adult who believes I will be a success. these are the faces, these are the people who support our middle learners. So for Mrs. Patson, whose room we saw the bee project in, Miss Harrison, whose room we didn't see, but she's gone off on, or Alexa Klassen, who's next to her there, she's come back from on that leave, so unfortunately we've had to say goodbye to Miss Harrison. But nice to see Alexa back in the building too. And then Sue Leach, whose class we visited, and Kathy Van Ziel supports mostly low incidence students as an EA, but also other students in the classes that we support. And there are other EAs that also come in and out to the intermediate grades. The next page over, I highlighted the B project, which you've now probably heard enough. Tina Lingard and Sue Davies, those are the two artists that are working with them. Just last week in the sunshine, they were out there silk painting on banners as well. I didn't get a chance to mention that or show you that. And then because Adele Harrison wasn't here when I was writing this, I pulled a project that I knew that, which I had done with her class and with her. So this was a kind of a neat thing from the University of Guelph. This was another grant that we wrote, and they had put out a call who would like to do this, and so we'd written a little proposal back to them, and they sent out this fancy trap, which you see in the bottom picture here. It's a bug trap, all the way out from Ontario, and all these collection bottles filled with ethanol, of all things, so the bugs would fly and get caught and yes, have to die in the ethanol, and then we send them off, and we had a video conference with the biologists at the beginning, and then another video conference with the biologists at the end as they were looking at the genetic sequencing of the insects that we found on our playground. And they hadn't had a trap anywhere near Revelstoke before, so it was really interesting. 8 new species were discovered on our playground. So they have this little list. They had schools across Canada participated, 600 and something schools. And then, so there we are, number 3. Or no, yeah. After a tie for second for a number of new species. That's kind of neat. Lots of them are these tiny little midges. It's kind of fun. But there again, there was this neat observation, and the kids were blogging the whole time. And so, this one day a spider had set up her web right across the entrance to the ethanol. So as the bugs were dying, the spider was catching them, and then that was quite interesting because they thought, what's the intellect of a spider? Yeah. And then on the next page, I wanted to highlight the Beyond Recycling project. Please jump in, Sue, if I don't do this well. But so Jeanette Vickers from Wildsight spent 24 weeks. Are these still kind of ongoing?
All the way through till June.
Yeah. And looking at what we use around us every day, what happens to it once we're done using it? Where does it go? How can we use less, use things more efficiently, produce energy without such an impact on the environment? And one of the things that I had nice photos of was paper used from the office shredding, and they made this beautiful paper. Do you want to highlight anything else there, Sue?
The kids are really enjoying the program, and as it happens, our pen pals in Castlegar, where we went and stayed in September, they're also doing the Beyond Recycling program. So it gives them something to talk about in their letters back and forth.
Both ends of the Columbia.
Yeah, and a little competition right now on saving energy and water conservation.
Then over on page 10, as we look at the primary grades, I just sort of reflecting for myself that this is our our 4th full year of full-day kindergarten, which when we first implemented it, there was some trepidation about how will this go? Are these kids really ready to be in school full day? And I think if you ask Molly Butler or Lucy Cruz, they'll tell you, yeah, they are, and it's changed the pace of the day, so you're not trying to hurry and get all the learning in one fell swoop. They've got time to kind of do low key activities, follow the learning activities, and lots of learning centers, play based but very purposeful. And then so in here's our staff members at this level. There's Kim there, Revelstoke grad. Patsy Walker, she's not, she's in the trail. On the left-hand side, I didn't put this in this graph of the kindergarten winter divels to show you, results. I put this in there to show you the range So this is just one measure. So this is phonemic awareness, so the little tiny individual sounds, for example, k, at. So we've got kids that are like zooming with that skill, and then kids that are, no, not connecting the phoneme, separating the phonemes inside of oral language at all yet. And that's a really key indicator of early reading success, not necessarily, upper level comprehension and so on, but that can be a key indicator of early reading success. So they come into kindergarten, and even by winter, they're still all over the map like this. And then this is the information that helps us go, okay, we really gotta get you understanding, like hearing sounds first, even before we introduce letters. You've gotta know, you've gotta be hearing these sounds and words. And so lots of focus with Mrs. Campbell and Mrs. Walker and Mrs. Blumenstein on those early skills for those kindies. The graph to the right is this is winter grade 3. So these are students who have had, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, and are still, these are the ones that are still at risk. So students who are still struggling with their reading, and what I've taken off of the graph is the names across the bottom. But the different colors is, this is grade 1, the blue at the bottom, grade 1 fall, and then grade 1 winter. So we can see, when they've made a leap in their learning, we can see kids that haven't made a big leap, or even some kids that have gone backwards in their way. There's a student missing from the middle here. And we assess all our kids with tools that are appropriate for their level. So here is a student with special needs, cognitive needs, and at some point we trust that she will be ready to be assessed at this, but at this time she's not, so she's not a reader yet. But we keep her in our data because of course she's still in our minds, and we believe that she'll become at the level a reader. 11, and I just highlighted a few other things that I didn't get to show you. So Moose the bunny in kindergarten, we didn't get to meet Moose. We have this funny kindergarten class, 5 girls in there, and everybody else is a boy. So 13 to 5 ratio of boys to girls. So so of course, not for every student, but in general, that does change the feel of a classroom. And Mrs. Bruce decided, instead of starting with something literacy-wise, we're starting with centers, and we're starting by playing and getting that out of the system and doing small group work with kids. Also a soft start. We've got a couple of students who are kind of chronically having a hard time getting in here, and so we just kind of have adapted what a day looks like in kindergarten to suit the kids that we have. Roots of empathy, so building those connections and that empathic understanding starts right away in K and K1, and we're so grateful for that program. This is where the child, like the baby, becomes the teacher, and the learning from that to peer-to-peer learning and also beyond. So that's
It's providing baby history.
So Mrs. Ailes, the optometrist, is one of our Roots of Empathy moms, and I know the baby's name, but not the mom's name in the K1 class. Miss Butler's K1s, with the smart board, the students manipulate that technology all the time. It's really quite fun to see. They did a study on owls, and they took apart owl pellets and examined that with their grade 4 buddies. I mentioned that Miss Rhoda's class had Miss Tetro in there. Always one of my favorite things to do in a day is to pop in during math time in Miss Rhoda's class. It's such focused and fun learning during the math time. It's an area that Sarah really loves, and it shows. And then Miss Noel's class, this is to the right here. This is Virgil Seymour, who's an elder who has kind of become a bit of an elder in residence, even though he travels a long way. He comes up and has made a nice connection to this 2-3 class with another class on his band. And then I highlighted the library. Mrs. Astor's not here, but you can feel her everywhere because she's such a warm presence in the library. Mrs. Tom and Mrs. Astor collaborate on the library, and Mrs. Tom also works with the 6-7s and does our enrichment. Currently, there's a couple of, we've replaced the AR program this year, finding that lots of the AR questions were very basic information questions, didn't necessarily allow students to delve deeper into books. And there was a sort of a felt pressure to read AR books at a difficult level so that they could get points. So we're really wanting for students to focus on the intrinsic reading, reasons for reading, for entertainment, for information, and in topics that they're interested in. So we moved away from the AR program, plus it was expensive, plus it was American. And we had a Reading Explorers program, which was like kids could read across different genres and then report to each other on what books, the recommendations they had. And now currently there's a 20-book challenge for our younger kids and a 40-book challenge for our older kids. And this again is across genres and with the eye to make sure if you love that series, make sure you read this book next, really sharing with each other their love of reading. Here's our student services team, although it's hard to define who's on that team and who's off that team because we kind of all feel like we are on that team. What I'd like to say about our student services team is it's always changing. We don't have, if you ask Mrs. Tompkins what her schedule is, she'll say which week, like when. Because based on what's happening in classrooms, she'll make sure that she's available for some pull-in, but then you might have, somebody might come to her and say oh my gosh, these 4 kids just need support with blah, and then she'll make that room. So her schedule's often changing, as is Mrs. Campbell's. And I didn't show you the music room, but Bob Rogers has been providing prep, and in that time has brought his music knowledge to the school, which is so important, I think, for students to have all kinds of ways into learning and to have someone as accomplished as Bob teaching our music class. We're very, very lucky. I don't know if you knew this, but he played trombone on the Aerosmith album. And Charlotte Diamond.
And Charlotte Diamond too.
And she's still going to do your concert in
Is she?
Abbotsford the next month.
Anyway, Bob Rogers truly has a gift and shares it in our school. I'm really grateful for that.
And his uncle is a lawyer, who's the BCTF lawyer for the class size
Really?
issue.
Oh.
He still is, right?
And his niece is on the music challenge thing, so, yeah, anyway.
John Rogers?
This is the Bob Rogers report.
That's right. How many degrees of Bob Rogers do we
Yeah.
take? So,
I wanted to also tip a hat to Michael Howarth, who has not just been the technology problem solver in the building, he's also really keen to come in and teach us how to maximize the use of that technology. So we've got all kinds of students from kindergarten learning basic programming. And basic programming, in my view, is basic thinking. If this, then this, and this could happen or this could happen. So I have to be really clear with the directions that I give. And I think those are really, really important thinking skills, not just technology skills. I wanted to highlight and thank Michael Howard. Regional education, all kinds of neat stuff happening with that, and I know that Leslie keeps you up to date. We're really excited that document is coming together, and everyone we've shared it with has had lots of really positive feedback. So that's just kind of a snapshot of what's happening with Aboriginal education. And before I turn the page, I need to say I totally forgot to include our custodians. You met one of them today, but they're a really key, and bus drivers. They're a really key part because everyone shares that philosophy that we need to be respectful in all our interactions with kids. Yeah, kids have a lot of interactions with custodians and bus drivers, and so I think our learning and our teaching needs to extend there as well. And then over to the back page, there's Andrea and me. Such a joy to work with Andrea and Glenn. Again, just a very positive starting place for parents as they come into our office, staff, community members, and of course kids. School code of conduct I highlighted next. We did some fairly major changes to that code of conduct last year, and one of the things I'm going to talk about at our PAC meeting tonight is, does this still say what we want it to say? For example, this year we don't have a dress code, and we were a little bit worried, how's that going to go? But we had lots of discussions about, who are we all talking to about dress code? Girls. And, is that something that we still need to be talking about in this day and age? And you know what? No. And it hasn't been an issue. Not to say that it never will be, but it hasn't been an issue. We have, so we've got shorts on. Okay, you can still learn. So that's been really neat, and the willingness of people to really, kind of reconsider where are we at and what's next for us, and to rework some of these things that have, been in place for a while. It can be hard to look at a sacred cow and think about doing something different. I wanted to highlight that. The back page, this is, I didn't put the whole code of conduct in here, but this, as we're talking about consequences, when students have, gone against what we believe, then this kind of helps guide our intervention with them. So level 1 is, no intent to cause harm. Primarily, we're about teaching at this level, and we're generally isolated or rare incidents. Level 2 is more serious. There's some intent there, and so therefore the consequences need to be considered in that light. And these behaviors, start to affect the tone or even the safety of our school. Restorative action and consequences must match the degree of harm at that level 2. And then level 3, it's very serious or potential to cause harm, and these actions are profoundly impacting the safe, caring, and orderly environment. And so we kind of listed a few things that would fall under those categories. So when we're talking to parents, it also helps guide. Why did you respond in this way? And then I had said earlier, one of the best ways to gauge whether what you're doing is working is to ask grade 7s who often, are coming into being quite, I have a voice and I would like to tell you how I feel. So in that question of school climate, people care about each other in this school. I was happy to see that their responses seem to indicate that, yeah, they do. I think that's where it all starts from. The last few pages, or the last couple of pages, are specific to our student health goal. We had one goal at CPE this year, and it was comprehensive student health. So that includes mind and body. And so it had some 4, I think, or 5 different objectives, which I've sort of highlighted there. So regular exercise, health, nutrition, and adequate sleep, looking after the physiological aspects of health. And I've highlighted a few things that we've made sure to focus on this month. In fact, we're end of this month we'll start up our school-wide runs and highlighting the physical activity becomes, and it's nice the weather is cooperating. And then in May, there's a real focus on mindfulness and stress reduction and purposeful ways to calm and relax. So we don't do everything all the time, but certainly there are aspects in our day-to-day work. Second one was around stress and worries, and that's coming out of, I shared last year with you, some of the MDI responses around anxiety and absence of stress and worries, and those were indicated by students that they need help with those, and truly that's continuing, and I feel in some ways we're in maybe a brave new world that consists of higher anxiety for kids, and we do need to be ready to respond to that. Lots of our kids have experienced financial stress and family stress in addition to the regular stresses that may happen in and out of schools. Or the last page there, peer belonging and connectedness. So this was the major reach of our goal last year, and we've continued the good work there in terms of making sure that there's not a big school, but the big group of students in the school have opportunities to connect across the grades. So for example, with our 4 house teams, and then each of those house teams being broken into family groups so that they've got a mixed age group of 12 to 15 students that they're comfortable working and doing activities with. That's one of the strategies, and there are lots of others. And the code of conduct is really key in that as well. Objective 4, this is the first year in the data with students that their online interactions are showing up as causing stress, especially in grade 7. Not off the charts, but until this year I haven't really seen that as being indicated in the survey responses. So we're really wanting to respond in that way, and a couple of things coming up. obviously we did Safe Online earlier this year with our grade 5 to 7 students, and there's the White Hatter presentation coming up soon, and parent presentations, just to help kids and their families manage their media in healthy ways. And the last one is sexual health education, and really getting us as a staff more comfortable with answering questions. I feel like kids are exposed to all kinds of things, sex and violence and things that they've got questions about, and we need to make sure that we normalize conversations about that at school, so that as they've got questions, they're not looking necessarily to their peers for all those answers. And if we can get
Because they don't always
comfortable,
get the best answers there.
exactly. If we can get comfortable with those conversations, I feel like those questions can be answered in healthier ways. So I ended like just abruptly like that. On here, am I taking too much time?
You're
Fine.
having a good
Okay.
time.
You just tell me if I need to stop. So this,
Well, we're back meetings at what
You're
time?
gonna give me that much power?
yes. And then I gotta do my tour with Bruce. No, it's not gonna work. You might be off the
It will.
hook. It will.
Is your computer awake? Yeah. It worked every time you and I plugged in and unplugged, it worked, so it will. But there you go.
Get my presenter notes too. I think I'll show it. Let's do that. Look, Sue, it's you.
Trying to figure
And I
out
don't
when
think
you
you've
even
seen
did
this
that.
yet.
I
I'm
have
sorry.
not.
So this is last year actually, and what they're doing is they're painting fish on the drains to make sure people remember not to put icky stuff down the drains that damages our fish. So I just said in a small school we wear many hats, rely on each other to create a stimulating and responsive learning environment, establishing a collaborative atmosphere in which decisions are made transparently and with the opportunity for input from all staff. Emphasis on continuous learning at all levels, and one person has all the answers, important contributions to the success of the whole, a real strengths-based approach, so we try very much to focus on not just what's a deficit, what a student needs, but also what they bring as a strength, and work from there. Resources, including time, money, and energy, are targeted intentionally, and they're based on shared goals, ongoing assessments, assessment for learning, behavior, and other observations. And the list, which I didn't talk about this year, but I've talked about in past years, this is our list of students that we're worried about, for whatever reason, and we at staff meetings will often just kind of go through that list and say, so how's so-and-so doing? How's that thing for so-and-so? And we try and informally make sure that nobody's slipping through the cracks, and we make opportunities to make connections with those kids that otherwise might not be there. So it's not their classroom teacher that connects with them, it's another staff. Intervention is personalized, support as needed, lots of pull in, so the resource person will come into the classroom. Some pull out, a fluid RTI model, so that's that triangle where you've got at the base, you've got really good instruction in the classroom with support as needed in the classroom. And then for those students that's not quite enough, then we really think about them purposefully and looking at their progress, and then intervening with them.
Carol, did you think we're looking at other slides?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah,
know?
no.
Oh, no, that's still the first slide.
Oh, okay.
So I'm at the assessment
Who's
part.
got control?
Who's got the control? Can I have that? Yeah,
Okay, I'm going around the circle. So we have collaborative atmosphere, is strength-based, the investment of resources, varied and rich learning experiences, use of assessment and personalization in their intervention, and then the final thing is that communication, families to parents and the students about their own. Changing the slide. Talking about in that collaborative atmosphere, professional development being it's not a day, it's a state of mind, and working like kids, and they know when there's that's important. And that sounds simplistic, but it's really important. You have to like kids to work in schools, and if you don't, you better find something else to do. And then wider community. This, for example, the picture there is of a Perks program that 6s and 7s went to as part of a team building exercise early on in the year. Strength-based, this picture you may have seen, this is from our Pink Shirt Day. And we did it this year with the tie-dyeing again. The message behind it seems like a lot of work to tie-dye everybody's t-shirt. The message is really important, and that is that we're all individual, and what makes us individual also makes us stronger as a group and more beautiful. So that's why we put all that effort into it. Lots of hands-on learning, lots of opportunity for students to be given questions, not answers. So they are making notes, not taking notes from somebody else. We start them off and then guide them in that inquiry. That's an important part of learning, and research endorses that. It is not just random. Inquiry learning does not mean you just kind of look at stuff without guidance. It is very guided and very focused. Investments in people, training, research, and really trying to share that, if somebody's got an interest in something, making sure that they have an opportunity to lead that among the staff. And learning from people and the land of our area, past, present, and future is important. Place-based learning, placing students in the geographic and actual ecosystem that they're living and learning in is important. And that's endorsed also by what we know by First Peoples principles. Sometimes it's messy and loud. I did not do a big school cleanup before you guys came. You can see this is a place where learning happens, and it's not always neat, tight. Integrating indigenous approaches and content. And what is that one? Learning context. Getting away from silos. Lots of interdisciplinary things. And then I've talked about how we use careful assessment, reading, math assessments diagnostically to inform our instructions primarily, not just to give a mark. And then communication is that last key to making sure we've got a holistic, strong kind of place to learn. And now I'm done. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
Just going to go through a grade organic math, grade 6 and 7. I would imagine some grade 6. But
Yes. So very much, yeah. And the groups are mixed age. They'll become mixed. The 6s and 7s will be mixed in. And the way it works is, so with each new unit, the whole group, 6s and 7s, will do a pre-assessment, and then based on that and based on early observations of their understanding, then they break out into 4 kind of ability groups, but within that there's a range. And absolutely, we've got grade 6s who are flying with grade 7 curriculum. We've also got grade 7s who are working on some things that they didn't really conquer last year. And because the groups are mixed age, and because they keep fluctuating with every new unit, they're finding that they don't feel like they're being taught down to.
also just a comment on the federal election, the student vote exercise, and really the masterpiece in organization. It's covering all these programs and everything. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's really meaningful, I think.
Yeah.
Lastly, do you have any-
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Ariel, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
I know people have said this before, but I think this is one of the best ways for us to use school board meetings, is to come to schools to get some of the energy that is going on in the schools, and it's great to be here. And I'm sitting right here right now, and my desk used to be right here.
Full circle.
It was a curtain, not a curtain, one of those accordion things across here that
Sliders.
separated us into 2 rooms, so it's always exciting for that reason.
There's a lot of history in this building.
There is.
Turned 40 years old this year, this
Yeah.
building. Yeah, it still looks pretty good for 40.
Thank you, Dad, Bill.
I know.
Can I just add, thanks very much for the written report. When you first sent it in, and I know you worked on it with Spring Road.
Yeah.
When you first sent it in, I called you to say how impressed I was with the format of it. And you said you wanted to have a change of format this year. That really was a very reader-friendly document, and that's what that is, the document you walked us through. And I think it's highly respectful of the work that's going on here. So thanks for the work on that. It's not numbers and it's not data. It's a really nice description
I wonder
of
if
what
that
happens.
is next week. Thank you.
And thanks for letting us give you a bit of a bad time about how long you go, because, but I know firsthand how difficult it is to summarize what's happening here in 20 minutes. You can't. So you tried in a half an hour, you still can't capture it all, but you gave us a good picture, so thanks very much.
I'm really grateful. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming and listening. I feel very lucky to be here.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'll take that back and see what I do with getting back on there. That's the duck, okay? Okay. All right, well, thanks very much. Now, you are, because I know you're getting ready for a pack meeting, so you're very welcome to stay.
I'm ready. If
Yeah.
I can stay,
okay.
I'd love to stay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to kick us out at some point, I'm sure, so, yeah. All right. All right. On the really exciting stuff, April.
Yes, on to the report.
So this report was worth 9 days because we had spring break in the middle. So there's 2 pages, I'll just highlight a couple for you, and then if you've got questions, I'd entertain questions in other areas. I just want to note and actually you heard Ariel talk about the number of opportunities, additional opportunities that come as a result of all the grant writing. Another such opportunity was the one that Naomi Ford, Pam Mayer, and Connie Howarth are doing right now, and that's the inquiry project at Begbie, which included the staff dinner I referred to in item number 4 there, the staff session and dinner with Laura Paymont. And then most recently, I was away, so I'm not sure if everyone here was able to go, but April 7th, when Laura spoke to parents at Begbie on sensory topics, and they've got one more event to go, and that's all as a result of grant dollars as well. And those grant dollars, Ariel will well know, they take a long time. It takes a long time to put together the reports and the requests for dollars. And then on page 2, just note that I was able to get over to the Begbie Elementary School Science Fair, and what an impressive thing that was. Now, Lori told me how many years she's been running one. Clearly, the kids had outstanding class support, but also lots of home support in some of them, and you could tell some of them had a lot of home support, and others didn't have a lot of home support, and they were fabulous, whether they had home support or not, because Lori does such a great job of teaching the scientific method and lays them all out, so they all felt successful. I know
It's really impressive.
Yeah, it really was. And then second to last, I'll just note that we've begun our budget committee meeting process. And I've noted in there who traditionally we've had that at that table. The trustees, actually, we've got a draft set of notes now for our budget committee that will be coming out to trustees to keep you up to date with the discussions that are taking place with our partner groups at that budget table. And finally, whoops, I jumped in too much there, wrong button. And then just finally noting that that we completed the draft, and that was work with Graham Farstead and Cooper and myself through the end of February and into March to get the request for proposals ready, the Mountain View RFP out, which closes on June the 14th. So that's out in circulation now, and I've included a copy of the RFP in your package for you.
Good,
All right.
thank you. Comments, questions?
Number
Yeah,
5.
go ahead.
I'm talking to Krista Davis.
Yeah.
Do you think she's coming back?
Yeah, I think so. That's why I didn't say there for sure. She came back, Tessa came back, she made the trip over on her own to say she needed to come see how, literally, she said how it felt. She said, if I come in and I feel like people have moved on and it just doesn't feel right for me to return, then I'll stay in Scotland. She left after a number of days and said, I feel completely and totally at home now. She has to figure out how to get she and her partner over here. So, because there's paperwork to do, so I'm expecting we're getting her back, which is great news, because Jim Redding is 2 years out of retirement. Yeah, he's really retiring, just like Bruce. Just keep on retiring. Yeah. Any others? Okay.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, thanks.
Leslie?
No, thank you.
Okay. I do have one, and I did send a message about this, and I thought I had my message here, but I don't. But that's all right.
Okay.
So arising out of number 10
Yep.
and number 26,
Okay.
with regards to.
Number on the budget, yeah.
Working on the budget, I do have a motion if somebody would like to move it, that the board hold a public information session to gather input, feedback on the draft 2016-17 annual budget on May the 4th, beginning at 4:15 p.m. Somebody would like to move that?
Well, I would move that, but with an adjustment of the date.
Well-
Because I see on the trustee upcoming date that we had a tour of Begbie School on May 4th.
Yeah, and I'll explain that, and if we need to change it, we will. Did you want to second that, Jeff?
Okay.
Yes. Pardon me?
I don't understand.
Oh, it would be, and just to explain it then, it would be to provide an opportunity for basically the public at large to take a look at it, at our draft budget documents, and if they have ideas, thoughts, suggestions that they would like to put to us, that would be a good time to do it, because it comes just before when we're going to have a meeting on the 11th, when we'll look at it and look at the information that we get from the budget committee, and then and put and consider anything that we get from the public on it. We want to add it to the budget in some way. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen there, but then that gives us the opportunity to do that, and then finish off the budget by the end of May, which is required, right? And the date, Leslie, is because that's the only board meeting before the May 25th board meeting, which is when we have to approve the budget.
And the May 11th date is for the budget
It's
committee meeting?
well, it's finance and facilities,
Okay.
where we'll look at the information on the budget,
Mhm.
but it won't be approval of it at that time.
Mhm.
And that's why. And yes, there is that bit of overlap with the tour, and maybe we'll have to adjust things as far as when the tour happens, as to when we get the public input, but we can do that.
When and where would the public meet?
At Mobay, at
At-
Begbie View, because that's where the board meeting is going to be at 4:15.
Oh, I see.
And we still have to finalize some of the details, but that would be the idea. And maybe then we'll have that session and then go on the tour and then have the board meeting. It might mean we have a longer period that day as far as board meeting and so on, but.
Sure. And likely, we could continue. The intention would be to have anybody come that had questions. Bruce would be available, I'd be available, and Bill would be available. The other trustees at that point would certainly be welcome to be there, but in terms of question, answer, input, critical that Bruce is there and that I'm there, and probably along with the board chair. And at that point, at 4:15, if we actually had people coming, and Bill, honestly, we're saying we're hoping some people would come give us some feedback, but we're not anticipating a large crowd. So likely, we're there for 15, 20 minutes to answer questions, and then we can carry on with the tour. But just to figure out whether or not there is an interest, and as Bill said before, we'd like the opportunity for public to be engaged, and if they choose to be engaged, great, and if they don't, we have the opportunity, so that's the intention. But not to be setting aside an evening, for example, where we kind of know nobody will come.
Okay.
How's that? Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, would we advertise this
Yeah, well,
meeting
do some
somehow?
advertising.
Yeah.
Through our
Right.
usual
Yeah.
emails and stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, emails out to PACs and PPACs, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Does that make sense, John? Sure. Okay. Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Great, thank you. Okay. We move along then to the next item, which is the Ministry of Education Special Education Compliance Audit Final Report.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so,
bragging.
yeah, so this will be the last time I brag about the report, is that, it will be, at least at a public board meeting, yeah. It's there for your review. It is highly complimentary. Just out of interest, I had been back in Ariel, he just recently sent me that link. I've been back and had a look. Our report will be published on the ministry site along with all the other districts that have had the reports done. So it's either a public celebration or a public flogging, and in some cases it is clearly a public flogging for some districts. Ours is clearly a public celebration. In terms of recommendations, most reports have got a series of recommendations. Some of them sound quite positive, and then others are very directive in terms of what has to happen as a result. And our observations, the observations piece of the report was nothing but going and to come up with those recommendations, which basically said, you're doing really great work, would you keep doing that great work? So the team wasn't even able to come up with a suggestion for us based on what we're doing, and that is unusual. You can look at the reports online, and they do come up with them. So, and I noted in the memo to you just how proud I am of learning support staff, because we didn't invent that 2 weeks before the audit team got here. That's special ed has been a strength in Revelstoke for many, many, many years, as they're on the backs of people that have worked really hard and continue to work really hard. So extremely proud of them, and glad to put it in the report one more, to put it in the board package one more time. So there it is.
Thank you.
Question. In the report, that there are 19 autistic students
Mhm.
that are being reported.
That they reviewed, yeah.
Seems to be a rather high number. Is that?
Fair to-
Percentage-wise in the population?
Fair to say that that's a little bit higher than what you consider to be a provincial average right now. But again, it comes back to our testing. So because we are so rigorous in our actual assessment, that we probably are identifying more students on percentage-wise than other districts are. And we have almost no wait list. So if we suspect that a student needs testing, that happens very quickly. But you've noted the autistic spectrum is growing in the province. Provincially, the numbers are going up. It's being more widely understood. Probably there was as many autistic students 10 years ago as there are now, but it's being better understood now, and a better means of assessment. Yeah. Okay.
Have we done anything as a board about writing to thank the people who are responsible for this outstanding?
We had a motion in our last meeting, and
We
I
did.
signed all the letters.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
really helpful to see.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
And I see them up on bulletin boards in the staff rooms now too.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Terrific.
Yes, but once again, I'd like to say thank you to the staff.
Yeah, I think we should.
Our
I
district
think it's
for
extraordinary.
this wonderful result for our district.
Good.
Good, okay, thanks. The next item is under other, and that's the BCSTA co-governance memorandum of understanding survey. This arises out of that memorandum and the commitment by the BCSTA and the Ministry of Education to basically do an annual review on that agreement, which was signed, if you go back, it's just after some of us, we could go right up to 2014. I remember we went to the trustee academy, and it was a big focus of that meeting. And over time, there certainly were some issues that caused concern with regards to this MOU. Thinking of last year specifically, some of the announcements the government made with regards, I think it was Bill 11, there were a few other items that seemed to say that the government or the ministry was not following along with the memorandum of understanding, and so there was a motion passed at last year's AGM that in fact we do this annual review. It's one that what BCSD is expecting is one from the board, and that's why I sent it out the way that I did, and my apologies because the actual survey is done online through the Survey Monkey, it's called. Which I'm not sure why they use that anyway, because it's an American operation. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So going through the survey, which actually when I first looked at it, I thought, I'm not sure this is exactly the way they should be asking these questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
But then I went back and reread it and reread the memorandum and put together the document, and thank you, Jeanette, for taking it up for me and making it look good, because mine wasn't like that. So it looks at issues of public confidence. Actually, it looks at the principles that are in the MOU and how they're being met. And so the first one is public confidence, second one is commitment to action, A3 is partnership, A4 is consultation and notification, which was one of the issues that was really causing concern last year. Then the whole issue of flexibility. Then in the document, there also was what's being done so far as the BCSDA has already done a review, a review about going forward and that sort of thing. So I took a look at all of that, and if you look at this, what you see is what's in italics are my thoughts on these issues, and I hope you both have had a time to take a look at that, and I'm just going to open it up to questions instead of trying to go through it all. But just to point out, on the very last page, I just read that earlier too, and the wording, and this is my fault, I didn't quite get it right. So it would be where it says a request to the Auditor General. What the point of this is to request the Auditor General, and if we've had presentations from the Auditor General over some of the meetings that we've been to with the BCSTA in the last little while, to actually do an audit on the provision of public education funds by the Minister of Education to see if in fact they're meeting their stated outcomes that they want or their objectives. And I know there was a bit of talk at one of our meetings about that, and I don't know if there's ever actually been an official request to go in, but it was asked at one of our meetings, provincial council meetings, whether or not they could do that, and they said yes, they could. and I think it should be done. That's why I put it in there, but that wording isn't quite right, I have to need to fix that,
Yeah, so you actually mean requested the Auditor General
to do an audit
to do an audit of the ministry,
of the ministry.
devolution of funds, not the board
No, the ministry, the
The
ministry,
ministry.
yes,
of the ministry to boards.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
that's great. That's good.
I think that's a really good suggestion, Bill. My lost document, which I did spend a little bit of time, but not as much time as you've spent on this, I don't think. I actually wondered if, in fact, this MOU should have been signed with the involvement of the Ministry of Finance. Because it seems to me, reading through a lot of the letters from different boards, that many of them feel that they are not communicating well with the ministry about money, and that somehow the Ministry of Education can promise certain things, but when it comes to budgets in the BC government, it's the Ministry of Finance who allocates the money, and the Ministry of Education really doesn't have very much say about how much they're going to get to distribute to boards. Am I off base on this? Am I misinterpreting something?
If I can just respond to them.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. I think you're right on, and that's why under partnerships, under C, under further actions, I mentioned exactly that many boards have asked the minister to do this, and that is to commit to the recommendations that were put out by the government's committee, and that's the Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, which recommend issues related to funding of public education. And that's on the second page under partnership.
So what have we said?
That the minister needs to commit to those recommendations. And of course, that would mean also they would have to get support from the Minister of Finance, because you're right, the Minister
Well,
of
the thing
Finance
is, the
really.
ministry can commit to something, but without the support of the Ministry of Finance, their commitment cannot be met,
Yeah,
right? And that's why, I mean, I guess it's probably pie in the sky to think that we would have the Ministry of Finance involved in the MOU as well. But I think it's too easy for that slippage to
and I
occur.
think you make a good point, so let's change the wording to the government needs to commit.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else, Leslie?
No, that was my name.
Okay, and Jeff?
So, from what I've seen, there's this co-governance between the ministry of the BCSTA. It goes along quite well until that's only when the Ministry of Finance comes along that the thing derails. And even the Ministry of Education hasn't been informed about the cuts before it's announced, so.
Certainly that happens with regards to financial, but you'll recall last year there were some other issues that weren't finance, but there was the adult education funding that was announced without any collaboration. There was the Bill 11, which was the whole, somebody helped me, the whole pro day thing, some of the changes they were making. And
Changes
again,
to School Act.
Changes to the School Act that was done without input from the VCSTA, and there was something else.
The new curriculum, the
Oh,
new curriculum days, yeah.
Some of the curriculum stuff, yeah.
Okay, here's a suggestion then in A1 under public confidence, section A, you have said not very successfully, especially in the first year. Why not scrap the word very?
Okay. Works for me. Did you have anything else, Jeff? Okay, would someone like to move that we approve this as our submission on this survey? Leslie, seconded Jeff. All those in favor? Good, thank you. And between Mike and I, we'll make sure the wording's correct.
You bet, yeah.
And
thank
thank
you.
you, Bill,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
doing this. I was completely
Would have worked in the chair,
dumbfounded
right?
by this exercise, particularly when I found that I couldn't type into a PDF with the tiny little box that was provided on a page, and the only way to do it was to transfer, it says edit in Word, so I did that, and then
Yeah,
the document wouldn't open again, so nothing was saved. That was very annoying.
on the actual survey, there's lots of room for me to tuck in, so it'll work out fine there. Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee reports, Early Childhood Development Committee minutes, and I believe he's back.
Well, that would be Alan, I was
Alan
there, it's
normally.
just, but it's just there for your information. We're actually just looking at whether or not we're just gonna have our May meeting, or just skip right to a June meeting, because they're busy, but beyond that, it's just there for information.
Okay. Good, and I just noticed I wanted to also mention, and it was in your report, the April 27th day on the redesigned curriculum, just to make sure. And we've sent many invitations out, there'll be media stuff being done, advertising on it for the 27th at 6:30 at RSS,
What's that?
the public meeting we're having on the redesigned curriculum. That the education
Oh,
committee
okay, it's in my
organized.
mailbox, I guess.
You must have it,
Invitation.
I'm sure you do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And we talked about it in the last couple of meetings too, so. Questions? David, do you have any?
No, none at all, sir.
Okay. And Jennifer, did you have any? Nobody else here?
Nope.